Welcome to the Mad Love Your Life show. I'm Mary D, the Joy Catalyst, here to be your host and transformation guide. Mad Love is about the mad, making a difference, and love is what we serve up to live a delicious life. My intention is to help you spark new ideas, break limiting beliefs, and align with your deepest dreams and desires. Get ready for laughter, inspiration, and finding your inner roar in every show. Hey everyone, welcome to the Mad Love Your Life show. It's great to be here back with you for another live show this week. And I have a super special guest for you today. But before we get to that, I do want to share with you my favorite read for the week. As most of you know, I am a very avid reader. I love information. I love deep diving into things like research. And when I say I like deep diving into research, what I mean is I love knowledge. I love knowledge. I think that there are really brilliant people in the world who have lots of brilliance to share and a lot of wisdom out there. And it's my joy to be able to consume and absorb that information and then share with you what I think is relative. And some of you know that I am recently taking a somatic coaching course, and it's been amazing because it's a very trauma-informed way of learning about coaching, and it's something that I'm adding to my practice. So I'm super excited about that. I work with high performers, and so this has come in so handy when it comes to also working with people who have trauma, but also not necessarily needing people to relive those traumas or even talk specifically about what they were, and still being able to help them move through to have a more powerful life. So this week, my favorite read is called The Body Keeps the Score, and it is actually written by a psychotherapist. He shares a lot of amazing stories, and I will say this, I did find that some of them were a little bit hard to listen to. When I say hard to listen to, in that my heart is just so full of compassion for knowing that there are so many people that go through really hard things in life, and that processing those things can be a painful space, and living with those things can be a painful space, especially if you don't know how to process them, if you don't know how to, live with some of the fears that come up, or live with the anxieties that are built up around things that a lot of us have no control over. So many things happen to young children and happen to us when we're at a very young age. But knowing that there is a way forward is really powerful. And so for any one of you who might be experiencing a lot of anxiety in your body, or you're not quite sure where to turn, and if talk therapy doesn't feel right for you, I highly recommend the book. It's a really easy read when it comes to the content, and it's not like super, super long. And I think you'll find that the tools in there are really valuable. So that's my recommendation for you all this week. And with that, we are going to get this show started. I also want to remind you that at any point during the live show, you can call in your questions. You can call into 1-866-451-1451. And you can also just drop a DM into my Instagram. It's at the Mary D. That's TheMaryDee. Or if you're streaming live from the YouTube channel, you can also drop your questions there for me or my guest in the chat. So without further ado, on today's show, I have my very special friend, Drew Berman. He is a peak performance strategist, a coach, an international speaker, and marketing expert. He's got nearly 3 decades of training across multiple industries. He assists business owners, entrepreneurs, and service providers in creating lucrative and scalable businesses and income streams. As the co-founder of the IMPoweRED Network and vice president of international business development for LSPN, the most trusted estate planning law firm, Drew specializes in helping lawyers, CPAs, and financial planners enhance client acquisition, partnerships, and revenue. Drew is not just a guest today. He is actually a personal friend of mine as well. We co authored a book together over the pandemic, and we're both people who are committed to our own personal growth and development and helping other people. So, with that, welcome to the show, Drew. I want to kick us off today and ask you my favorite question that I ask all of my guests, and that is, what do you know now that you wish you had known 30 years ago? Like, what's a piece of knowledge that you got later in life that you wish you had sooner that really helped, could help move the needle for you in life or business?
Well, Mary D, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for that incredible introduction. I want to learn about that book you are reading because it sounds exceptional. And there's an expression that says, if you live like a lawyer while you're in law school, you will live like a law student while you are a lawyer. And now that I'm 51, I'm learning, I feel like I'm adulting and I'm learning more things about money, how it works. And I would say if there was one thing I wish I knew when I was young as a teenager, is the super value of compounding interest and
Mm.
the law of 72, which is if you take 72 and you divide it by the interest rate that you're getting in the bank or wherever you're investing your money, that's how long it'll take to double your income. So I've been studying these charts from 1% to 15%. And as an adult growing your life, you could double your income every 50 years or every 32 years or
Mm.
every 12 years or every 6 years. And then because of compounding, every time it doubles, it could double and double and double. And I'm blown away that I'm learning that at 51.
Ooh, I love compounding interest. I think it's one of my favorite words in all of the English vocabulary. And it's powerful. Tell me more about this law of 72 because I don't think I've heard this before. So, can you give me like a real world example here?
I can. So I work with an estate planning attorney, and I was just in Utah, and I got a chance to ski in a whiteout in Alta, and it was incredible. But
Ooh.
as I was leaving, I was in his office, and he gave me this book, How Money Works, and it's a thin read. I read it on the airplane home. I'm probably going to read it once a month, and it's got little cartoons, so I can show my 14-year-old son, which I love. But the Law of 72, there's a whole chapter dedicated to it. So I'll share with you just what I'm learning because I'm a student of this. It's really quite remarkable. So the rule of 72 is a mental math shortcut, a simple, powerful formula that can be used to quickly approximate the amount of time it takes for money to double given a fixed annual rate of interest. So if you have a 1% interest rate, 72 divided by 1%, it'll take you 72 years to double your income.
Ooh. Okay.
If you have a 3% interest rate, it'll take you 24 years to double your income. If you have a 6% interest rate, 72 divided by 6 equals 12 years to double. If you're able to find 9% interest rate, 72 divided by 9, it'll take you 8 years to double. And if you find 12%, then 72 divided by 12, it'll take you 6 years to double. Well, if you're doubling every 6 years from 30, it's much different than doubling every 12 years when you're 70.
Yeah.
So it's amazing that compounding interest. And there's a cool chart, which I'll send everyone. I'll take a picture of it. I'll send everyone here. But there's a cool chart, Mary D, that tells you your interest rate and your years from age 19 to age 67. It's fascinating.
I love that. Tell me the name of this book again.
So I actually have a gift for everybody that I'm looking at, and I think it has the Law of 72 in it. I'm going to send everybody here. It's an ebook. I didn't write it. I don't get any affiliate on it. I'm reading it. But this one's called Money, Wealth, and Life Insurance. And I'm going to send that to you and everyone that is listening to this. that reaches out to me, I'm just going to send it for free because I think it's very, very powerful. The book that I'm going to send you, it's called Money, Wealth, and Insurance.
I love that. Drop your email for us real quick, Drew, so people have that.
Sure. How do I do that?
Just speak it out
Oh,
loud.
yeah. Drew A. Berman, not Drew Berman, because then the other Drew Berman gets it. Drew
Oh,
A. Berman. Yeah, and then he always ends it to me. He's like, "Hey, is this yours?" He's a nice
yeah.
Drew Berman. He's not the Drew Berman, but my email is drewaberman@gmail.com, and I will send you this copy of this book called Money, Wealth, and Life Insurance, and then I'll send you a picture from the one I'm reading with the Law of 72.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. Yeah, we'll have you give that again here at the end of the call, and of course, folks, you are welcome to reach out to us here at the Mad Love Your Life show, and we will also connect you with Drew. So, Drew, peak performance obviously is part of what you do in coaching and in life. So let's scratch that surface and then circle back around to where you are today, because I feel like fitness is such a big piece of your overall health and wellness. And that
Yeah,
is part of being in a peak performance state. So
yeah,
you are someone that I know, decided to travel the world by bicycle. So let's talk about that, because when I think about traveling the world, bicycle is not the mode of transportation that I'm going to say pops into mind as my most preferred method of
yeah,
transport. Mostly that seat hurts my butt so bad. I really believe bucket seats were made for me. So tell me, how do you make a decision to go around the world on a bicycle?
yeah. It's my favorite conversation of all time. It's never been done before. It's never been done since. I signed up for an international bike ride. So in uh, 1996, my uncle had died of AIDS, and I had never heard of
Mm.
AIDS before. I only knew, kind of, I guess, Rock Hudson, Liberace. Like I didn't really. It was and he died of AIDS. And the community really rallied around him and that. And Tanqueray, the gin, had a New York to Boston AIDS benefit and ride. So I bought a bicycle and I rode from New York to Boston 3 times. And I rode from North Carolina to DC once. I raised over $10,000 for AIDS services and I became a cyclist. And then someone put on my lap this ride called Odyssey 2000, and it was a 35 country, 200 person, 20,000-mile bicycle ride that started January 1st, 2000 in LA and ended up in January 1st, 2001 in LA. 35 countries,
Wow.
200 people, 20,000 miles. And it was extraordinary. It was something that I was 28 and single, and it was an unbelievable, incredible, beautiful, holistic, spiritual experience. And I
Ooh.
can talk for hours on it, but I'll tell you quickly. We kicked off the Rose Bowl parade January 1st, 2000. We rode from LA to Tijuana all the way down to Costa Baja in Mexico.
Wow.
We flew from Baja to Costa Rica to Argentina. We flew from Argentina, Buenos Aires to Johannesburg. We rode from Johannesburg to
Wow.
Cape Town. That was 30 days. From Cape Town, we flew to Greece. We did 2.5 months in Greece, Western Europe, Spain, France, Italy. Flew back to the States. We rode from New York to Montreal, Montreal to Quebec City, flew from Quebec City back to Western Europe, did
Wow.
another month or two in Norway, Sweden, Switzerland, Finland, Russia, then went through wine country in Austria. From Austria, we flew to Australia for the 2000 Sydney Olympics, which was just amazing.
Wow.
I saw 5 Olympic events, and then 2.5 months in Asia: Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, China, Japan, and it was unbelievable.
Wow, it sounds amazing. It sounds amazing. I definitely have a trip around the world on my bucket list, but again, not necessarily by bicycle. I do have some questions for you around that though, because I think that a trip like that had to create some level of challenge and some adversity and some things that you had to overcome. And I want to find out how you did that. But first, we're going to go to a quick commercial break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
Mike Zorich, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorich, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorich has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hey, welcome back. All right. So we were talking about your trip around the world, Drew, on a bicycle. Tell me what the biggest challenge you faced on that trip was.
You know what's interesting? The challenge started 2 years before the event, and it has continued to maybe last year. Since day one, there was an us and them. And there was people who thought it was the best thing ever, and they thought that it was just, the best thing ever. The other people were maybe a little bit more higher expectations that weren't getting met, and they were complainers. And it's actually served me throughout my whole life of business, knowing that there's complainers on both sides of everything good, and it
Okay.
forced me to find the good in everything. It was actually a lot of challenges, and people expected like a luxury trip. People expected, to have their what wiped, and think of all the logistics that you go through in your life and daily routine with your family, and expenses and time zones. We had multiple time zones, multiple languages. We had 18 international flights, and it wasn't a luxury trip. It was serviced, and there was service provided, but it was a trip in nature. So we had multiple challenges, some of them dangerous challenges in nature, and they did the best they can. But there was a complaining group that was predominantly loud, and there was a good portion of them.
Okay. Okay. So did that teach you just that there's always going to be complainers that show up, or did it teach you more of like how to maybe not be one of those people? Like what was the overarching theme there?
Well, let's talk about La Montaña del Muerte. Do you know what that means in Spanish?
Something about death.
Yeah, let's talk about the Mountain of Death Day. That was in Costa Rica, and the guide said, "Slight incline, great view," and that's how the day started. And it was called La Montaña del Muerte, the Mountain of Death. So it's like 80 kilometers up. We're in Costa Rica, and there's a check-in for lunch every day. So you ride out with the group. Everyone's got matching helmets, but you're on the road of hundreds and hundreds of miles, whatever. And at check-in, there's a giant check-in, and you have to check in at midway or lunch. And we're halfway up the mountain, and it's brutal. it's getting freezing and we're going vertical and it's getting dangerous. It's getting really, really hard. And I'm like, I don't know. And we hitchhike. So I'm with two other bikers, a guy and a gal, and we got a truck and he put our bikes in the truck and we hover in blankets and we
Wow.
wave to the check-in. We don't even want to get out and they check us in so they know we're safe. We get to the top of the mountain. He has to go. He can't take us any longer. And now we're shivering because we only had shorts and a t-shirt. And now my lips are blue and it's
Wow.
raining and it's very dangerous. And we go down the mountain and all we know is our story. And we get there and it's triage. It's an
Oh, wow.
absolute nightmare. There's people danger, there's ambulances, there's blue lips, there's hypothermia, and no one can handle it. One of the riders was smart and he got a bus and he got a flatbed and he got about 70 bikers off the road. It was a
Wow.
really, really, really tough day.
Yeah.
And we had 100 of those. We had
Wow.
100 the bikes didn't make it to Japan. We were stuck
Mm.
in Panama and we were on Mary D. It was sunset on a beautiful hotel in Panama and we're on top of the hotel and we're at a pool and there's music and sunset and the bar and we find out we can't go to Costa Rica the next day because there's a challenge. So some of us are
Mm.
like, woohoo, let's jump in the pool. We'll just hang out and enjoy Panama. And other people flipped the F out. Like, what do you mean?
Mm.
I'm like, do you have a date tomorrow on Costa
Right.
Rica? You can't enjoy Panama tonight?
Right.
Those things. So, and
Got it.
that happened all year round. So when the
Got
bikes
it.
didn't make it to Japan, some of us were like, all right, I guess we're doing a bus tour of Japan. And
Mm.
others were like, oh, I paid for this. I want to ride EFM every freaking mile. So,
Yeah.
Mary, out of 200 cyclists that paid for this ride, how many did EFM every effing mile? Would you guess? How many out of
Out of
200?
did I'm gonna guess that 75%?
Seven.
7! Wow!
Seven people.
Wow! Wow,
Seven
7
people.
and all I'm guessing all due to different circumstances, right?
Yeah.
You have
So seven people were committed to do every effing mile, and they
okay.
did. And
Wow.
I wasn't, so they had a very lenient sign in, sign out policy, and our team took a lot of lenient sign in, sign out policies.
Yeah.
So my other question I ask everybody is guess how much it cost? It was in the year 2000. They included breakfast and dinner for a year,
Okay.
a new bike,
Ooh,
a
okay.
yeah, Raleigh made a bike specifically for us,
Nice.
a technician, a tech guy, a massage therapist,
Ooh,
sleeping for a year,
okay.
60% hotels, 40% camping,
Okay.
18 international flights,
Wow.
and a daily route guide,
Okay.
and a truck to carry all of our gear. 200 people. Guess how much it cost in the year 2000?
Oh, wow. Back in 2000, this was 24 years ago. How much do I think it was? I think it was a $60,000 a year trip, maybe 60, right around there.
I'd love your friends to guess. I'd love you to guess on Facebook Live. No one ever guesses anywhere close.
Wow.
They advertised it at $100 a day, so it cost me 35 grand.
Okay.
I paid 2 years in advance, so I got a discount, so I paid 33 grand.
Okay. So half
Yeah,
that. Wow. That's
that was
crazy.
crazy. The
That is crazy.
third question is out of 200, knowing that it cost 33 grand,
Right.
what was the average age?
Ooh, I'm gonna guess in the 20s. 20 between 25 and 35.
49.
Wow. Okay. Okay, so you were the young buck in the group at the time.
Yeah, so every couple weeks now we get a couple emails of all the people who have died, and we're doing the
Mm.
25-year reunion in Ohio, July 25.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I
Yeah.
think that is such an amazing thing. I feel like I have an eclectic group of friends where everyone has some amazing story, and now you have joined the ranks of being world traveler on a bike. And I imagine that definitely came with so many of its own. I mean, you shared a very like harrowing story about one of the challenges,
Oh my
and
God,
I
yes.
think it's so true. Like one of the first mentors I ever had always said to me, never criticize, condemn, or complain. And that was
Right.
one of his mantras. And I was like, okay, like I'm on board with that. I'm definitely game for all of those. I'm pretty positive anyway. So I don't want to do any of those three things anyways. And as life has gone on and now I can look back 20 plus years to the first time I ever heard that, I just go, wow, it's so true. Like life is so much more delightful when we're not busy criticizing, complaining, and condemning. Like when we can just also show up when life throws us these curveballs and go, oh, well, I guess I'm getting an extra night in Panama instead of, and it may not be on board with the exact schedule, but whenever is life exactly on schedule,
Yeah.
right? Like it doesn't happen. Even think of the most rigid places. For example, a school. Those run on a kind of a schedule, or a train. Those run on a schedule, but I guarantee you all over the country right now, trains are running late.
Yeah.
Things are not going as planned. Something is on the tracks. A
Yeah.
snow day is happening somewhere. A weather day is happening and school isn't going on. So I think that it's the ability to teach people to just be more fluid and knowing that like how beautiful it is on our systems when we can just go, let me breathe into the maybe some disappointment that shows up because things aren't as planned or as expected, but also the ability to just shift right out of that. So that makes sense, Drew, why you would be in the business of peak performance, because clearly that's one of the
Yeah.
rules that you've been able to live by and work
It
through.
started there for sure. And now then, since knowing you, right? So how does that relate to you and your audience? It's a fun story, but how does it relate to you? So through peak performance, and I've spent, I don't know, at least six figures, sometimes money I didn't have, Mary D, studying from people like you, the Maverick Millionaire, our friend in common, Peak Potentials, Tony Robbins, Landmark. And I realized that humans go through challenging parts in life. And so I've been obsessed with peak performance for 20 years. And am I perfect? No, I'm still a student of it. But everything from the minute you wake up to your morning routine, to yoga and meditation, to God and prayer, to the law of attraction, to staying physical throughout the day, to the law of association, getting to know people like you, to writing a book, to adding a value, to constantly studying. I mean, I could teach for a weekend and not stop for 11 straight hours on peak performance, performance hacks, language, mindset, beliefs. And then I come from sales and marketing. So I know how to deal with people and appointments and follow
Yeah.
up. And I mean, I'm coaching a lawyer, Mary D. And I said, and he does estate planning. And I said, what happens after you do a plan? He says, well, I give them a lot of information. And I said, well, then what? And then he says, I ask them if they want to do it. And I'm like, well, what if they don't? He's like, then they leave. And I'm like, well, then what? He's like, I don't really have a system. I'm like,
Mm.
how do you follow up? He's like, well, I'm like, what do you mean? So he's like, I said, wait a second. You spend a half hour with a person who already said that they want to get an estate plan done. And then what? You don't charge them for that? And then, no. And I said, okay. And then you don't follow up? He's like, no. And I said, you know what you have? You have a lot of overeducated non-buyers. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. And there's a dance between giving high value to your clients and prospects versus giving away your time for free.
Right.
Then
Right.
we had another lawyer, and he said, yeah, I call every client once a month. I said, hey, do you do that too? He's like, no. I'm like, do that. You'll do. I said, what would happen if you did that starting today? He's like, I'll double my business. I
Mm.
said, I said, do it.
Yeah. So much gold out there. And I think that so often when people are stuck in sometimes the wisdom of what they're good at, right? This attorney is good at creating estate plans, and that's his magic, but it's not in following up with those people who have already raised their hand and said, "Hey, I want what you're offering." And I think that's life. That's life. And that's such a good lesson for life. And I hope all of you are catching that.
Yeah,
How many times are we also like missing the boat? How many times has someone raised their hand and we forget to circle back? How
yeah.
many times are we the person who has raised their hand and we're also maybe expecting that person to show back up? So
I mean, Mary D, we can do a whole training just on this because
we could.
I reach out to and they don't follow up. I raise my hand. I say, yes, I'm a potential client and prospect, and people don't follow up. I go to networking events and people don't follow up. And
Mhm.
I studied marketing and sales and networking and communication and business development for my whole life. But the lawyers and the doctors and the dentists and the chiropractors and the CPAs, they've never studied any of that. So
Mhm.
that's why I work with professionals, because the skills that I have over time, like you and I are like, oh yeah, follow up is like obvious to us. But to him, he was like, if they want it, they'll buy it. I'm like,
Yeah.
you have to reach out to them 5 times. He's like, 5 times? How can I do that?
Right, right. Oh, crazy. So, Drew, let's also talk about peak physical performance. Tell me, what are the things that are the things you've established in your life that are habits or routines that really help you live optimally?
So I will show you. So some of us go to the gym and work out in the mornings, but if throughout the day you're not doing either sit-ups or
Okay.
body squats or push-ups, and what this does is throughout the day, those three exercises, body squats, push-ups, and jumping jacks or crunches, not even jumping jacks. One of my coaches, a seven-figure dude, he does it 12 times a day. He makes
Wow.
sure, because during our day, if you have to do an appointment, or if you have to make a choice, or if you have to make a decision, or if you have to think, or if you have to deal with people, you're dealing with cortisol. Cortisol grows in your body. And what doing that creates dopamine. And the
Mm,
dopamine actually gets rid of cortisol, which is highly stressed. So we live in a highly volatile, stressful time, and getting
mhm,
up and exercising throughout the day is easy, and it'll give you more oxygen. It gives you more blood flow. And then all the basics, and I don't follow all of them, but the silly little t-shirts, more water, less alcohol, more greens, less coffee,
mhm.
more broccoli, less chocolate chip cookies. I
Yeah.
love chocolate chip cookies, but I know consciously that broccoli is going to be better than chocolate chip cookies. Hello. But I do go to the
I
gym.
I like broccoli with my chocolate chip cookies, not at the same time, but one and then the other. All right, hold that thought, Drew. We're going to go to a quick commercial break and we'll be right back.
Looking forward to it.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth, and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
All right, before the break, we were talking about cortisol in the body and beautiful ways to cycle in some dopamine to help offset that stress hormone. Most of you know cortisol as the stress hormone. It is actually there for your protection, but unfortunately, in this day and age of stress, it's not just for alerting you that a tiger is around the corner, because since tigers aren't around the corner anymore. Unless you live in the jungles of India somewhere. And so, with that, breaking up the day, Drew, you mentioned squats, which those are literally one of my also daily go tos. I wake up and that's one of the very first exercises I do in the morning. I do a modified version of push ups. I do them using leverage. So, I use the counter just to help myself avoid some shoulder injury. And I also do I do kettlebells, which are a little bit different. But I heard you talk about jumping jacks as being one of the options along with some ab work. And I want to mention this because you mentioned Tony Robbins. They studied Tony Robbins, and apparently Tony has the bone density of like a silverback gorilla. Because if any of you have ever experienced Tony Robbins or even just watched one of the videos, you will see Tony jumping up and down, up and down. It's a staple for this large man to be jumping up and down. And it's how he changes his state. And it's how he teaches other people how to change their state. And this is such a beautiful, beautiful lesson also in performance and in being able to change your state out of being funky or being tired into creating some energy in your body. And if you're listening, folks, especially for you over 40, and I know that there's a huge demographic because we look at my stats all the time that we have here on the show that are over 40. Y'all, our bone density, it's so important as we get older to strengthen it so that we don't have fractures, so that we don't end up falling and breaking our hip. All of those come into play, and that pounding that you get from jumping jacks, from that hard surface on the ground, from any kind of like weightlifting, any of that, even if you're using your own body, is so important because it creates strength in our bones. When we're just sitting all day, this is not helping we're doing our body no favors. I will likely have a good doctor friend of mine who is a chiropractor come talk to us later this season about why this sitting position for so many hours of the day is not great. For those of you that have the luxury of working from home, of creating your own schedules, then and honestly, even if you don't, many of you will still have breaks. If you go to work, you still probably have a lunch break. Like, the opportunity to get up and move in those moments is so important. It's so important. Every day finding that way to go get some sunshine, to go get some movement. Maybe you don't live somewhere sunny. You're like, Mary, I live in, Seattle and it rains half the year or whatever it is there. Then go find that space where you can actually move your body, because it's so important. It's how we let our body know that we're still alive and moving, and our body goes, okay, let's keep it going. And so being physically active, such an important piece of that. So yeah, thanks for those shares, Drew.
Yeah.
So another question that I like to cover with my guest is relationship advice. I know you've been married a very long time. So, people always want to know the secrets. What's the best relationship advice that you can share with us, Drew?
Yeah, so married 19 years to my first wife, and 20 years will be in May. And I think out of everything I've learned, listen, I like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I really like John Gray. He says no matter what you're going through, your wife will never want to stop doing projects in the house. And no matter what women are going through, men don't always need to have the solution. And I think that is a very good foundation. I do love the five love languages. I think the five love languages in my marriage, as well as in my friendships, and as well as relationships with mom and family, as well as business. Five love languages are words of affirmation, gifts, time, physical touch, and acts of service. So if you and I are in a relationship, whether romantic or professional, and your love language is acts of service, you like when I come do things for you, whether it's hold the door open for you or solve one of your problems at work or take one of your projects off your desk, that's your love language. If I think your love language is gifts, and I want to acknowledge you and thank you for all the amazing things that you're doing, whether you're my wife or you're my business partner. And I bring you a gift. If it's romantic, flowers. If it's professional, I bring you a journal or, a brand new pen. And I'm like, thank you for all you do. You're not feeling loved in that moment because I'm not speaking your love language. So I know my love language. I like words of affirmation. I like being
Mm.
told I'm doing good. I like being thanked. I like being acknowledged for what I'm doing. And if I'm feeling that, I don't need you to spend more time with me.
Got
If
it.
it's physical touch, it's not necessarily sex or intimacy. If I give you a high five, or if we bump elbows, or we take the company out to a company picnic and we play touch football, you're feeling loved because your love language is physical touch. But if I want to tell you how good you're doing, because I think it's words of acknowledgement, you won't hear it. So I like the five love languages for professional and romantic relationships.
Ooh, same, same. That's a high recommend. That book is by Gary Chapman. For those of you that are not familiar with it, it is called The Five Love Languages, and it's a short and easy read. Also, I would say put this in your arsenal for relationships, not just with a romantic partner or even with your business relationships, but also with your children. This is a really fun one. I actually asked the whole family to read it and sat at the table with my nieces and nephews, and we all guessed each other's love languages and talked more about how we give and receive. And also, so sometimes the language you give in is not necessarily the language you want to receive in, which I also found to be very fascinating. I found that I love to receive in physical touch, but I love to give in quality time. So I think that that's always an interesting mix of how you can be with people. And I
Why
find that that's also why it's been such a driver of the work that I do, because quality time, when I am in a coaching session, when I'm in a consulting session, like, this is my time that I'm giving to my client. And it's really rewarding work for me when I get to be in my zone of genius with my clients and spending time with them. So it's beautiful to integrate those love languages and actually see how they really do fuel us and fill our tank. It's for those of you that end up reading the book, you'll know what it is to fill your tank. That's a great share. So thanks for that, Drew. Yeah, and congratulations. 19 years is a long time. It sounds like it's been 19 happy years, which I think is the most important part of that. Amazing, amazing. All right. Well, as we get towards the last part of the show here, Drew, I want to circle back to insurance because, I think when people hear insurance, they think about life insurance. They think of those offers that they get in the mail that say, sign up here, and for $5 a month, you can have this term policy. And what are you talking about versus what am I like? I'm giving you the example of like term insurance. So, but what are you talking about? Because I've never known anyone to get rich off of term insurance. Term has been like, in case a meteor falls out of the sky and wipes me out tomorrow, then maybe my term insurance kicks in. Otherwise, you pay for it and then what? Right? It's not really a wealth building vehicle. So how are you talking about the difference in wealth building vehicles when you're talking about insurance?
Yeah, I'm blown away because I work for an estate planning law firm, and he has the largest estate planning law firm in the country. And through estate planning, I've gotten to meet thousands of people who are in the world of finance, business, insurance. And I always thought, literally, and I'll just be transparent, I always thought it was like used car salesman here, and then insurance salesman was way under here. That's what I thought. My dad did it when I was in my 20s. He died broke, and I thought, like, yeah, no one really sells, whatever. But I posted on LinkedIn that I've been working with this financial company and I'm kind of intrigued and I'm getting my license. I'm getting my insurance license. And people started congratulating me. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Then my best friend, I know him a long, long, long time. He's an attorney. He's a business attorney. He says, you mean to tell me you're taking the brilliance of Drew Berman, 20 years in sales, marketing, communication, and you're taking it to the number one industry in the world, the financial sector? He's like, don't walk, run. Don't run, sprint. I'm like, really? Okay, thank you. And then I just got off the phone today and I reached out to the woman who's the head of one of the top Alzheimer's charities in the country. And she works with very, very, very high net worth individuals, heads of hospitals, head doctors, and she runs the Alzheimer's division. So she deals with a lot of people who are doing long-term care prep for families. And she's like, Drew, I work with all the people who buy life insurance and they believe in it. And congratulations, it's so amazing. So in this book that I'm going to send you, they tell a story about JCPenney, Disney, Coca-Cola, and here it says, JCPenney, when the market crashed in 1929, JCPenney, then a dry goods store for mining and farm families, was severely affected. As the sole owner, James Cash Penney took a huge dive in the company and personal wealth. The only thing that helped the company stay afloat was the cash value in his life insurance policy. So what this actually really does, Mary Day, is helps people if they live too long, die too young, or get sick in between. And I'm going to send everybody a gift of this book. It's just blowing my mind.
I love it. I love it. That was a little cliffhanger for you all, meaning you read the PDF read the book, and you will get the details on what the differences are. And yeah, I think about how I was really fortunate. I did not learn about money from my parents. I did not learn about money from school. I actually fortunately had some great mentors and happened to be in financial tech early on, and so got to learn from amazing people there. And that was really critical because I learned that there are insurance vehicles that actually are wealth building strategies, and we just don't really hear about them, and so it's important to pass that on to the people that we love and understand how to implement that for ourselves so that we're not just doing the run of the mill 401k, Roth IRA. Yes, you can do those things. There are some great, tax strategies tied up in those, but they're not the end all be all. And I think it's important for people to know and understand that, and they can only do that through some education. And obviously, you are an open door for them to get some education around that. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to go to our last commercial break of the show, and we'll be right back.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Mike Zorek, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorick, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorick has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
All right, home stretch here. Thank you again, Drew, for being on today and for just sharing with us your peak performance tips as well as relationship tips. Oh, those are always my favorite. I love to get those because I feel like this is how we live a well-rounded life, is when we can actually have um, alignment with what's happening to us physically, emotionally, and of course, so much of what's happening financially also ties into that, and what's happening in our relationships. So those are important pieces. Drew, I understand you have a gift for our audience. Will you one more time give us your email and any other information you want on how folks can reach you?
Yeah, so I'm going to give everyone a gift. The book is called Money, Wealth, Life Insurance. I didn't write it. I don't get an affiliate on it. It is purely a gift. I just read it. I want you to read it. It's called How the Wealthy Use Life Insurance as a Tax-Free Personal Bank to Supercharge Their Savings. Just send me an email, drewaberman@gmail.com, and just write free book or podcast with Mary D or whatever it be. And I think what we would also do for them, Mary D, is anyone who wants a book, we'll offer them a free financial needs analysis with either an estate planning attorney or a wealth expert. And they handle anything from debt strategies to how to deal with 6 and 7 and 8 figure businesses and what the Rockefellers did and how to protect their wealth. So as my gift to your listeners and you, because you're awesome.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for that, Drew. All right, folks. Well, join us back here next week for a new segment of the Mad Love Your Life show. And remember that you can always catch Mad Love Your Life here every Wednesday at 4 Eastern. Also, head over to maryd.com. It's MARYDEE.com to grab the link to the YouTube channel, which is also the Mad Love Your Life show, for more great content where we post an extended version of the show each week as well. So you can get even more great content. And until next time, may abundance always walk beside you, may joy always go before you, and may love always guide you on your path. Thank you for tuning in to today's show. We air live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Bold Brave TV. We hope to see you back next week. For more ways to connect with my guests, content, programs, and retreats, just head over to www.maryd.com and subscribe. That's MARYDEE.com.